Hi, I'm sitting here in my kitchen with Jill Smiley, who just corrected me on her name, which I've been getting wrong this whole time. So, Team 2, welcome. Thank you so much for your recommendation. Jill and I did have a chance to discuss it a little bit before you came on mic, and what I'll be asking Jill about, and what I think you'll be hearing, is that you did a great job of focusing in on something that they actually are already discussing. So good job as outsiders coming in and figuring that out. And now, but of course, it's there are challenges within that. So Jill, when you look at this, what do you like about this idea? What's exciting?
Sure. The idea of outreach and getting smaller portions of the orchestra to play in unique venues and, not necessarily what you call it here, boring classical music, but a bit of a fusion, a little bit of it, but something that's more recognizable is something that we've been contemplating and talking about. And there are some subgroups of the symphony who actually do that. We have a group of string quartet players who play in Logan's Pub, just actually down the street from here, on a fairly regular basis. The questions that we have are, they have a very full schedule, so to demand that they play in outside venues doesn't necessarily work. Do we pay them? Is this something that's a symphony product so that the outcome is actually controlled by the symphony? Or is it something that we just encourage musicians to do on their own and then we market to that audience? So help them grow their outside the symphony product. So those are sort of issues that we struggle with. It's a question of unique venues, but it's also losing control of our product, which is maybe not a bad thing if we're trying to shift it a bit to try to get that audience. But then if you're playing a different product, how does that bring people back into your main concert series? And maybe it's ensuring that our musicians who are out in the community have information with them, and maybe there's an incentive or an offer to get people to come back as a trial type thing. So there's lots of different ways that we can try to make that happen on a small scale, and then if we find a successful model, making it bigger.
So what I'm hearing is there might be opportunities for creativity in the relationship between the symphony and the musicians.
Yes, I would agree, because, right now, anything outside of their contract, they do on their own, right? There's not a whole lot of extra money to be paying with them, and it's not like we can go out and try to coordinate and try to sell that unless it's a little bit more traditional. But how do we encourage them, and do we pay them? Do we maybe not pay them, but offer the marketing skills, and there's a little bit of budget in terms of promotion to try to get that name out? But then how do we control the product?
Right. And this team seemed to be pointing to two ways you can sort of leverage the passion of existing music lovers.
Sure.
So
yeah.
One is through these smaller venues, and the other is through having the symphony play with big name musicians. And you have a few thoughts on that.
Sure. Every year we bring in what we like to call a big name. I mean, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, to do a special concert for us. And that usually sells quite well for us. The issue becomes those people don't come back. They're what we call the one and dones. We're happy to have them for that concert, but there's very little crossover with our market, because it's usually the band and then way in the background, the symphony. And unless a band or an act has a symphony concert or a symphony album, it's much harder to integrate that product. So it's something that is done, but it's expensive. And we use those to generate some money so that we can afford to promote some of our other concerts that don't necessarily make a whole lot of money, a lot of our classical music. So how do we tie that in together? I don't know. I mean, we certainly market to them, but see very little response. So unless we do that sort of series, or can bring them in some other way.
And when you say it's expensive, so does a lot of the money go to the big name star then?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the fees that they charge, $20,000, $30,000 for one concert, we can't do that on a regular basis. Because we have to, rent the hall, pay for our musicians as well as market that, and we use those as to generate income to cover the rest of our series. And there's only so many acts that we can get, and that's something that we struggle with, because we still have to fill the theater. Because if we don't sell out those, we don't want to lose money.
Okay, so the summary would be that I think that would be excited about the idea of leveraging that demographic of passionate music lovers already, but there's some tweaking around the how.
Yeah, the tweaking around the how. How does it fit into an already busy concert? Should we control that or not? Do we just offer our marketing services? How do we integrate that without knowing exactly what's going to happen? And does that hurt our brand if something isn't successful? It's a small part of a bigger control issue of product.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you, team. Hi, Team 2. So you heard the feedback from Jill, and now I want to provide you with some process feedback. Great work, team. I think what you did particularly well was that you clarified the problem, and you came up with two core insights as far as I can see. One is the idea of leveraging existing resources, and you have that clearly stated in your problem statement and in your BHAG, or in your problem statement. And the other one is around leveraging existing music lovers. You're not going after the whole demographic, but you're going after, as you say in your in question number 5 on here, you're going after existing people who already love music. So that means that you've clarified the problem really well in your clarification stage. Now, I would say that I don't think what you're expressing yet completely does justice to your thinking. So I think the point about leveraging existing music lovers is as key as leveraging existing talent, and I think that needs to be reflected in your problem statement. And I also think your BHAG can still be made more specific in your next iteration. So if you were going to really give Jill a vision that would be sort of both concrete and inspirational, in terms of, yes, all those people who are going to Logan's, who are right now going to all these other performances around Victoria, are going to be going to the symphony. If you were going to sort of consolidate that into a vision statement, what would it be? So that would be my challenge for you as you go through your revision. But good job in clarification. Now, when I look at your documents, what I see is that you did a really great job at assessing the situation. Very thorough work. The survey was great, and you really did. I think that 43% of people find the symphony boring. Really did resonate with Jill. She even referred to it in a subsequent feedback session. So I think that, good job finding relevant data in your assessment of the situation. In terms of it, as I go through, so then exploring the vision, BHAG, what I find interesting when you did your degree of importance versus probability of success, that you can kind of see the moment here where, if it were possible for musicians to play in smaller venues, where all of a sudden we see the seed of what would ultimately become and be developed into your idea. So that's creativity, right? Where you're finding that insight, and out of all the possible insights, you're choosing that one that has potential. So what I'd like to read about in your paper is, how did that happen? How did you come to identify this as one of your core insights, and how did you then develop it? What was happening to get this creative output here in your process? So out of everything that came before, all the ideas, how did you end up converging on that? What was going on? Because clearly that was a good insight. It did identify something that Jill, who has been immersed in the symphony for, over a year now, that they've already been discussing and playing with. So good work with coming up with such an astute insight in such a short time, that people who've been grappling with the problem for a long time have coming to the same place as they've been coming to. So great, great. Let's move forward. I don't have a lot of, it looks like you did work on this very thorough. From the outside, it looks very thorough and very organized. But the one thing I do know is that what it looks like from the outside is usually different from what it felt like on the inside. So I would like in the paper for you to hear more about what your process was like as you went through and how you think that relates to your outcome. Now, my next comment is around your PPCO. And so I want to again just commend you that when I look at the concerns, I see that you had many of the same concerns that Jill raised about about reputational risk, about outside of their current mandate. How do you turn this into ticket sales? Those kind of questions. So add whatever concerns you heard to Jill to this, but you did a really good job of really assessing the situation, getting into the head of the client and understanding what her concerns would be. Now, as you move to the next iteration, I want to see from your paper that you're addressing those concerns and you're moving this idea to the next level and addressing some of the questions around how she might address those concerns. In terms of your decision matrix, again, good job. Financially viable, clearly her number one concern. Will it generate ticket sales? Again, I would question, I think that's a question. How does this end up generating ticket sales? It is important and it remains a good question. I think that will it increase audience base needs to be made more specific, because you're talking about a specific audience base based in existing music lovers, and I think that's one of your core insights. So I think that criteria needs to be made more specific, but in general, I think this is strong. So in all, your process does look really good. You heard Jill's feedback, so you heard that you've clarified the problem in a direction in which she is interested in exploring, that she would like to see a further developed iteration of your idea, because in a way she has a lot of challenges with its direction and would appreciate help in solving them. That said, this is an exercise for school. Your real job is for your own learning, not to help Jill. So if you would like me to pass on your revised recommendation to Jill, put it at the top of your paper. I give you permission to pass my revised recommendation on to Jill, and I will do so. But this is really your primary responsibility as to your own learning experience. So if you just want to write the paper and I be the only one who reads it, that's good as well. So team, good work. Good work in clarifying, good work in assessing especially. And now I would say put a bit more work into articulating your clarification of the problem. So that means in terms of your BHAG and your problem statement, and in terms of taking your transformation of your idea one step further. All right, let me know if you have questions.